September 24, 2025. Hong Kong woke up to fear. Overnight, the city of 8 million was placed under its highest hurricane warning signal, number 10. By dawn, the nightmare was real. At the shoreline, the turquoise waters of Victoria Harbour turned into a towering grey wall. Waves, some as high as 35 feet, crashed into seawalls, smashing railings and tossing cars like toys. In one seaside hotel, security cameras captured the moment storm surges burst through glass doors, sending torrents of water gushing through the lobby, sweeping guests off their feet. Meanwhile, winds screamed through the city at 105 miles per hour. Construction scaffolding tore loose trees, splintered like matchsticks, and entire streets vanished under blinding sheets of rain. On social media, videos spread like wildfire, storefronts collapsing, playgrounds underwater, lampposts buckling in the gale. This was not a passing storm. This was Super Typhoon Ragasa, the king of winds, striking one of the world's busiest financial hubs with the fury of a war zone. Before Ragasa slammed into Hong Kong, the storm had already carved a trail of destruction across Asia. In the northern Philippines, Ragasa's winds roared at over 170 miles per hour. Entire coastal towns on Luzon and the Babuyan Islands were torn apart. Fishing boats were hurled onto highways, rice fields were drowned beneath muddy torrents, and more than 500,000 people were forced to flee. Power grids collapsed, leaving entire provinces in total darkness. Survivors described the storm as the end of the world. Barely a day later, Ragasa made landfall in Taiwan. In Hualien and Taitung counties, rainfall measured in feet, not inches. Over 20 inches fell in just 48 hours. Streets became rivers, airports shut down, and highways disappeared beneath landslides. Along the east coast, storm surges up to 25 feet swallowed entire fishing ports. The government deployed more than 30,000 soldiers and rescue workers, but even that massive effort struggled against Ragasa's fury. By the time the storm's outer bands reached Hong Kong, Ragasa had already proven it was no ordinary typhoon. This was a system so vast and powerful, meteorologists called it a storm without boundaries, an unstoppable force, rewriting Asia's disaster history. As Ragasa moved north, southern China entered full crisis mode. Guangdong province, home to over 125 million people, activated its highest emergency response. Authorities announced the 5 suspensions, schools closed, factories shut down, businesses halted, construction sites abandoned, and public transit brought to a standstill. By the evening of September 23rd, Guangdong looked like a nation at war. High-speed rail was frozen, airports canceled hundreds of flights, and coastal highways were barricaded. Supermarkets overflowed with panic buyers, stripping shelves of bottled water, canned food, and batteries. At gas stations, lines of cars stretched for blocks until pumps ran dry. Along the Pearl River Delta, China's economic engine loudspeakers echoed through the streets. Prepare for a major disaster. Do not be complacent. Entire cities sealed their hatches like ships bracing for impact. The mobilization was staggering. Over 200 emergency teams, 14 rescue vessels, and tens of thousands of soldiers, firefighters, and police officers were deployed across the province. Coastal villages stacked sandbags, reinforced rooftops, and evacuated residents to stadiums and schools converted into massive shelters. From Zhuhai to Shenzhen, the message was clear when Ragasa made landfall: it would not just be a storm, it would be a battle for survival. By the early hours of September 24th, Ragasa's outer bands slammed into Guangdong's coastline with terrifying force. Winds screamed through Zhuhai and Jiangmen at over 110 miles per hour, hurling street signs like missiles and ripping entire billboards from steel frames. Rain fell in blinding sheets, flooding intersections within minutes. Emergency hotlines were overwhelmed. In just 3 hours, more than 5,000 calls poured in, families trapped in cars, residents stranded in ground-floor apartments, entire neighborhoods cut off by torrents of water. In Chaozhou, a rooftop was torn from an apartment complex, injuring residents below. In Shantou, storm surges crashed over seawalls, swallowing fishing docks and pushing boats onto city streets. The government's mobilization was massive: 200 specialized rescue teams, 14 large vessels, and tens of thousands of soldiers and firefighters on the ground. Stadiums became emergency shelters while Coast Guard patrols enforced a strict ban on maritime activity, ordering every vessel to port. Still, fear spread faster than the storm itself. Videos flooded Chinese social media, overturned cars, glass towers shedding windows, families huddled in candlelit basements. Across the Pearl River Delta, home to more than 70 million people, daily life collapsed into silence as Ragasa unleashed its fury. By nightfall, the human toll of Ragasa was undeniable. At least dozens were confirmed dead, with hundreds more injured across Hong Kong, Taiwan, and mainland China. In Guangdong alone, emergency crews pulled families from submerged homes carrying children on their backs through chest-deep water. Firefighters in Hong Kong evacuated elderly residents trapped on upper floors as seawater surged into ground-level apartments. Hospitals were pushed to the brink. Doctors treated broken bones from collapsing walls, head injuries from flying debris, and cases of hypothermia after hours in floodwaters. Backup generators kept emergency rooms lit as power grids failed across entire districts. Beyond the cities, rural communities were devastated. Farmers watched helplessly as swollen rivers swallowed rice paddies and livestock pens, an entire season's labor erased in a single day. Landslides in Guangxi and Hunan buried highways, isolating villages for hours until military helicopters could drop supplies. Across Southeast Asia, Ragasa's reach extended far beyond its eye. Outer rain bands hammered Laos and northern Vietnam, triggering flash floods and threatening already swollen rivers. Cargo ships vanished in the Gulf of Tonkin, while coastal towns braced for more surges. This was no longer just China's disaster. Ragasa had become a regional menace, rewriting the map of destruction. Meteorologists agree Ragasa wasn't just another typhoon. It was a monster born from the perfect storm of conditions. Over the South China Sea, water temperatures were several degrees above average, pumping the atmosphere with heat and moisture. At the same time, a plunging cold front from the north and a powerful jet stream overhead created the wind shear needed to spin thunderstorms into supercells. The result, winds topping 185 miles per hour and storm surges that swallowed coastlines. But the science doesn't stop there. Climate researchers warn that warmer oceans worldwide are supercharging storms, making them wetter, stronger, and faster. Ragasa was a textbook case. Its outer rain bands trained over the same regions for hours, unloading more than 2 feet of rain in some areas, far more than infrastructure was ever built to handle. For Americans, watching the lesson is sobering. The same forces that fueled Ragasa are at play in the Gulf of Mexico and Atlantic, where cities like Houston, Miami, and New Orleans sit directly in the path of stronger hurricanes. Scientists say storms once called once in a century are now happening every decade or even sooner. Ragasa wasn't just Asia's storm. It was a preview of our future. As dawn breaks after Ragasa, the scars left across Asia are impossible to ignore. Cities, underwater families displaced entire regions struggling to rebuild. But this is more than one nation's tragedy. It is a warning to all of us. Extreme weather is no longer rare. It is stronger, faster, and closer than we think. For Americans, the lesson is urgent. From hurricanes slamming the Gulf Coast to flash floods in the Southwest, the same forces that powered Ragasa are already at work here. Survival depends on preparation, having a plan, knowing evacuation routes, and protecting your family before the storm clouds gather. If this story moved, you don't just watch, take action. Like this video, subscribe for more in-depth storm coverage, and share it with friends and family. Awareness saves lives. Together, we can prepare for tomorrow's storms before they arrive.